And what I would like to put across, and what I'm always trying to put across, and what is very hard to put across even though we say it over and over again, is how real what we're talking about is. It is real. It can just shake your teeth out. It is very fine to sit under the teaching tree and talk about psychedelic drugs. Do you know how much this is like being smashed on a psychedelic drug? Not at all. Not one iota. Because what is required in the actual confrontation of the thing is that all this theory, all this tradition, all this self-examination is brought in to the focus of the moment. It is existentially real. You are being tried and you are being tested by a thing and an agency that you cannot know. And this is very different from getting a laugh from an audience or a paycheck from an institution or your book reviewed in the newspaper. That is all dross and foolishness, because we all know that there are weasels everywhere and that your position in human society is no indication of your existential validity. But if you can pass through the fire of the psychedelic experience, and it is a fire, the hexagram Li, the clinging, is the sign of the psychedelic experience. It is the noetic fire. It's the fire that descended on Pentecost and gave language to the apostles. If you can pass through that fire, then you have made a pact outside of history, outside of the validations and value systems of men and women. You have found authentic being. And it's a great challenge, a great controversy. People, react differently. They want to preserve this particular tradition which mitigates against it, that particular tradition which mitigates against it. The fact is, we can only say what we know. And I diligently sought existential validity in the various rumored Sothic oases in the landscape of human aspirations, such as yoga, such as sitting, such as, and it's just a matter of shopping around, and finding out what actually sets your knees knocking, what actually makes tears of joy run down your face spontaneously, what actually can make you grovel and plead for mercy. And it is this force, this real invocation of real spirit. It is a dark night of the soul. It is an ecstasy, apotheosis, apokatastasis. It even happens outside of Greek. It is pure challenge met and overcome, pure self-authentication. And in a world where we are just buffeted, used, set against one another, misled, misconstrued, lied to, and controlled, nevertheless, you can just push between the tents of Carnival Row and walk out into the woods, and there you find the spiritual life waiting. There you find the limpid Sophic waters of the Tao that were always there. And it's a matter of courage, not of finding the guru, not of seeking the answer. Anybody who is seeking the answer is in flight from the answer, because the answer is not sought, it is faced. You know what it is. You just have to face the demands that it will make upon you, because it isn't easy. Somebody isn't going to pass by your prostrate form and touch you on the head and tell you you're enlightened. It's going to be burned out of you the way the dross is burned away from the precious metal in the alchemical furnace. It takes courage and commitment and a willingness to make what Plotinus called the flight of the alone to the alone. This is what shamanism is about. We do have a good time with each other. We do have a good time with all these drugs and copulating furiously upon them and making metaphors with them. But the truth is that it is the narrow neck that challenges us and the narrow neck that authenticates us. And when you pass through it, each time you come to the other side, you've taken a step along the path of knowledge that is irrevocable. You are not set back. Nature loves courage. Nature is an infinitude of doorways opening into authentic being, calling to us with the voice of our ancestors, the spirits of the planet, the time travelers that rove the centuries ahead of us, and who knows what else. The whole fact of being is a palpable, ongoing, continuous miracle. And we know this. We feel it. But we are the programmed victims of a death-dealing society. So our task becomes, I think, to use the empowerment that these kind of gatherings give us, and to use the self-recognition that we can each have here, that we are not alone. That, I'm saying this because I'm glib, but we all know it. That's how I'm able to say it. It is elicited from the group mind. If it weren't in you, I would be incomprehensible. So we form then an understanding. And then we each are strengthened in the private trials of our souls when we go to meet these things, when we try to hammer out a relationship to the ally, when we try to hammer out a relationship to the denizens of our own unconscious. This is life authentically lived. And I'm sure that you're probably like me in that you come to these kind of gathering points from a much more mundane life, a life of a scramble for sustenance and whatever career mongering we're all doing. I mean, very few of us have a chance to keep the white-hot image of ourselves as a skywalker in front of us. But nevertheless, this is the fact. This is the internal myth that drives us and delivers knowledge and delivers authentic being. And it takes a very, very small number of people to make a change, especially when the change is not resisted. Because what we're saying is not menacing to the establishment. It's utterly incomprehensible to the establishment. So we can formulate in our benign neglect, we can formulate our own self-image. And when finally in the chaos of the world, we are asked for what our answer would be, what solution we would propose, it will be all there, all finished, ready and waiting. This is how mutation, real mutation, occurs in biological populations. It isn't that there's a mutation and suddenly it works better and so it takes over. No, it's that the mutation is always there in the background and is never significant until the conditions change. It gets dry, it gets wet. Suddenly, those mutant genes that allowed an organism to survive in wetter or drier conditions make all the difference. So we are a residual mutation that will not die, that is carried along in the bloodstream of the beast. And every 20 or 30 years or so, like the hatch of locusts or the coming of some other natural phenomenon in the ecosystem of the planet, there are waves of reform and of transcendent hope. It begins in America with the transcendentalists. As part of that now, We have only to bide our time. This shamanic model is at the very centerpiece of the new society that will be constellated,